here on First Take. The Atlanta Hawks won their 14th game in their last 15 in overtime last night against the Pistons. Stephen A., do you think the Red Hot Hawks can maybe win a first-round playoff series at this point with the streak they're on?
If you go up against somebody that sleeps on them, they're talented enough where they can do some things, and they're elevating in confidence. And let's keep it a buck. They're better since Trae Young is gone. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you're not trying to indict him because he can play. And you know that, but he's a volume shooter and what have you. And obviously he's miniature in size, and so he was a defensive liability a lot of times. That's not the case now. You look at these guys and the way they play, and you look at Johnson, who's the clear star and leader for this team, and what he can do on the basketball court. Atlanta is not a joke. They are not a team to take lightly. You've got to come to play to beat them. Otherwise, you're going to go home. They could pull an upset. I doubt it will happen, but I'm not sleeping on the possibilities. I'm impressed by what I'm seeing from them.
I was impressed by Atlanta last night, too. I watched this game. It was on ESPN, but then they blew a 21-point lead. Like, I thought they had this in the bag. They had to win it in overtime. It's those kinds of things. They got to figure out how to get over the hump. I know. It
happens in a regular season game.
You're right. For most part of this NBA season, tanking has been a hot topic of discussion. Commissioner Adam Silver spoke Wednesday on the subject following the NBA Board of Governors meeting. Listen to this.
I do think ultimately this is a decision that needs to be made at the ownership level. It has business implications, it has basketball implications, it has integrity implications for the league. So it's one that we take very seriously, and we are going to fix it, full stop. There is an aspect of team building that is called a genuine rebuild, rebuild with integrity. The problem we're having these days is it's become almost impossible to distinguish between a tank and a rebuild.
Yeah, because usually we use the tank to start the rebuild, but nonetheless, do you think Adam Silver can stop tanking? Wendy?
I want to see the plan, so I'm not going to say yes or no to that question until I see the plan. He implied that the plan will be coming very soon here because he is calling an scheduled Board of Governors meeting in May where apparently they're going to try to ratify this. I just want to point something out. The first change to anti-tanking was in 1985. That's when the lottery system was begun. It's Patrick Ewing,
correct,
was an envelope, blah, blah, blah. Since 1985, guys, they have changed the lottery system 4 times. So I'm going to give the first change being the lottery itself, then 4 more changes. That's 5. This will be 6. Am I supposed to now believe that the 6th change will mean that it's going to work? How do I know? I will tell you this. Right now, teams are incentivized to lose. This is why I'm not really attacking anybody who's tanking, because these are good people doing the correct strategy thing. It may be the wrong thing for basketball business, but if you brought in a consultant, you brought in the top business consultants in the world and told them, please evaluate what these teams should do, they would advise exactly what these teams are doing. The incentive is there to tank. That is what they are doing strategically. So what I would like to see is a system that incentivizes winning. We could spend the next 5 hours listening to ideas to do that. But I want to hear an system that incentivizes winning. That's what I want to wait, and then I will make my judgment on whether it can work.
Stephen A.
Go ahead, Jay. I'll go last. Go ahead, Jay.
Go ahead, Jay.
I think, Wendy, to your point, there's some smaller things, and I'm with you on seeing in totality how Adam Silver decides to go about this. The one thing that we always talked about are, like death and taxes, right? And what do people know? What do people mostly find around taxes? They find loopholes. And I think constantly with this new revision, there are loopholes that are always found, and teams are always scheming in how to be in a position of advantage. I think removing protected picks, auditing win records, or trying to find a way to incentivize the floor to win more. Maybe, once we get by the 8 teams that are in the playoffs, incentivizing that 9, 10, 11 spot to increase probability for a higher draft pick. But something drastic needs to occur. I just don't know if I trust in the league's ability. And by the way, I also just want to state for the record, the league in totality is pretty healthy. It's in a really good space. Competition-wise, it's one of the best I've ever seen, right? So I don't want this to overshadow that because it turns into that. But they have to fine-tune this, and they have to find a way to not make this the main theme that continues to rear its ugly head to take away from the game being in a great place, about the expansion in Seattle and Vegas, about NBA Europe, and about the youth leagues that the NBA is really focusing on continuing to develop this game.
Well, let's go through a couple of things, and let's point to what Wendy pointed out and alluded to, because it's very, very important. When you're talking about modifications that took place, he's right. First time was 1985. You know when the second was, what the second time was, guys? You ready for this? Shay, Jay, Wendy? 1986. Third time, 1990. Fourth time, 1993. So think about how soon those things transpired. It's like, damn, you got to change it that quick? That's how bad it is, right? And so it's not that it's bad flagrantly in terms of numbers. It's just that you knew that there's something that needed to be done. When you're talking about modifications that took place, 2019, what do? They modified to curb tanking by flattening the odds and making sure that the top three picks all had an equal 14% chance at the number one pick in the NBA draft. Do you know since that year, the number one pick has not gone to the team with the worst record? Since 2019. Hasn't happened. The team with the worst record has yet to win the draft lottery. Okay? So, again, mission accomplished, but still talking about the same problem. So what does this come down to, guys? This comes down to owners, and it comes down to really deciphering what their objective is. Some owners would prefer box office attractions to winning. We don't talk about that enough. We don't talk about the dude that gets you to walk through the turnstiles and how that's good for business. Why is that relevant to bring up? Because as we've seen the age of analytics take fold, and I want to be very, very clear about what I'm saying here. I'm not a guy that knocks analytics. I'm a guy that knocks this notion that analytics is new and innovative and it just arrived. It's been here for decades. You know, you had Pat Riley using analytics in the late 80s, early 90s. People don't realize that. What I'm talking about is the dependency on it, where you get people that never had any kind of association with basketball that are now running basketball teams. And what's their claim to fame? They're numbers experts. They're data experts. They're data analytics guys. And that speaks the same language, Jay, looking right at you when I say this, that speaks the same language as those owners. Why would an owner love that? Because it gives the owner the impression he actually knows basketball. You can't do that with a player that played the game, particularly at a Hall of Fame level, that went through it, but you never played the game and you trying to talk to him about basketball decisions, whether he's the coach or the GM. That's a resistance that an owner, an individual in a position of power, doesn't want to have to deal with. You want somebody in a subordinate position that speaks your language, that caters to the agenda that you have. And if you have somebody that's box office, let's say, for example, Steph Curry wasn't winning 4 championships. LeBron hadn't won 4 championships. But let's just say they got deep into the playoffs all the time. Do you know how many owners would have preferred that rather than having a team that won a championship with no star power, with nobody that makes you walk through the turnstiles? They just play the right way and they win. Think about the Detroit Pistons. We love Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed Wallace, Benny Wallace, Lindsey Hunter, and the crew. We loved them. A lot of people in Detroit loved them. But when you look at the national and the global landscape of the Detroit Pistons, they didn't necessarily resonate. They resonated during the Bad Boys days because they had Isaiah Thomas. That's why, is the Bad Boy Pistons, even as great as they were, Isaiah Thomas was star power. Some owners prefer that over just winning. That's the challenge that the league has to work to overcome. It's that element right there. And only the owners can assist in steering it in the right direction.
I remember in February, the NBA fined the Jazz and the Pacers for manipulating the integrity of the game or whatever it was. They rested healthy players. The Pacers have gone